coming up.
This is $8 billion, Adam. $8 billion, for heaven's sakes. When we went to read the contracts, over 360 pages were completely ripped out of the contracts. Who ripped out these pages?
Now, the Liberals gave $61 million to Pratt & Whitney, which is a subsidiary of Raytheon Technologies, a multi-billion-dollar aerospace and defense company, to develop a new type of engine. And my question is, do you think that company could develop a new engine without $61 million of taxpayer money?
This Guy's Garage. Like and subscribe.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you to the officials for coming out this afternoon. This will be for I said. How much money was given to PowerCo through the Net Zero Accelerator Fund? Just the amount, dollar amount, please.
Is 700 million. Zero has been dispersed today.
700 million.
Correct.
700 million. PowerCo company is owned by Volkswagen Group, a German company that made over $450 billion in revenue last year. How many emissions are supposed to be directly reduced from the $700 million handout?
Go ahead if you say it if you have it. I'll find the.
Maybe you can stop the timer. I don't know.
Sorry, there's a number of projects, and so you're asking for specific megatons. We do have the information. We just need a minute to get to it.
Can we pause the time?
Yeah, but then the question becomes, if you do this every time.
Somebody has to look up.
Well, how many emissions?
So I will answer. Obviously, this is a battery deal, and if you look at the types of investments, our first pillar is about the large industrial emitters. They're intended to get to emissions in the 2030 timeline. Battery deals are part of a second and third pillar, which are intended to build the technologies for future and for to build the economy of the future.
I realize there's different pillars and all that, but can you tell us how many emissions are directly reduced by a $700 million handout to this company?
And so the investments we are making are intended to build technology.
It was just a yes or no. Can you tell us how many emissions have been reduced?
Our GHG emissions that we are calculated in a quantitative amount are those up to 2030. These are intended to generate GHG emissions beyond that, and so I don't have a number to give you.
You can't tell us?
There's no quantitative.
You can't tell us how many emissions have been reduced for $700 million.
Mr. Vancouver,
multinational billion-dollar company.
Mr. Mazier,
our non-partisan witnesses who are here to help us reform our report are not partisans, and they're not to be berated by our my fellow MPs. I think that's inappropriate. They're not on trial for something, and that type of conduct is inappropriate.
Okay, well, we'll continue, but I think Mr. Bilodeau's answer was pretty clear. There's two phases. One which includes GHG reduction estimates, and the second phase is more geared towards laying the groundwork for the future. It's not that he doesn't want to say what or that they've never thought about the issue, but it's just that that's the way it's divided up. But anyway, we'll continue.
So I'll ask the question again. How many emissions are supposed to be directly reduced from the $700 billion handout to PowerCo? Just how many emissions? Can you tell me? Yes or no?
That's contradictory. That's contradictory, Mr.
Do you have any idea?
Mr. Mazier, you're saying.
It's
Mr. Mazier, I stopped the clock, but just so that we set the tone, there's a contradiction in your questioning there. You're saying how many, and then it becomes a yes or no question. But I'll let Mr. Bilodeau take care of himself.
I'll just move on.
Okay.
I'll move on. How about that?
Go ahead, Mr. Bilodeau. I'm sure that we're going to hit our stride here, and it's going to be smooth. But
Our calculations are based on emissions that are up to 2030. Beyond that, calculating emissions is a very unclear science, so we've not done quantitative assessments, but we do expect that the investments in battery and the electrification.
Okay, well, you can't, so you can't tell us.
Point of order, Mr.
I gotta
Chair.
have another second question.
Sorry,
This
yes,
one's
Mr.
pretty
Vancouver,
clear cut.
excuse me,
This
Mr.
one is
Major,
really
I've
easy, I
stopped the
promise.
clock. We have a point of order. We are finishing, I mean, the plan is to finish at 6:30, so what's the point of order?
Just as Mr. Bilodeau started answering the question, Mr. Mazer interjected again. I
It's
would
not
like
a
to
point
hear
of
the
order.
answers.
This is $8
I would
billion,
like to hear the
Adam.
answers.
$8 billion, for heaven's sakes.
Try to, let's just tone it down a bit. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Mazer.
Again, for I said, the Environment Committee ordered the government to release the contracts for the $8 billion Net Zero Accelerator Fund. When we went to read the contracts, over 360 pages were completely ripped out of the contracts. Who ripped out these pages?
To be clear, no pages were ripped out, pages were redacted. We've tried to strike the balance between ensuring that the committee and Parliament has all available information that it needs to properly hold government to account and do its work. At the same time, we have obligations that are both legal and contractual. And so working with the committee, we built out an approach which is intended to ensure that you have information in camera. We have obviously a legal obligation to consult with third parties on the use of this information.
You did not answer my question because those were pages ripped out of the contracts. They were numbered and there were pages ripped out of the contracts. A total of 360. This is what 360 pages look like. 360 pages are ripped out of these contracts. Now, who ripped them out? I went and read through the contracts, 360 pages were ripped out.
Mr. Mazer, I think
Who
this
ripped
is a
them out?
prop. Mr. Mazer, I think this is qualifies as a prop, especially since there's nothing written on those pages.
This is the point.
Yes,
This is the point.
I understand, but it
This
is
is what it
a
looks
prop.
like.
It is a prop, and
This is what it
I
looks
prefer
like,
that we
Chair,
didn't
though.
use props.
Like everybody
You
thinks,
made your point. You
360
made your
pages,
point
this is
about
what-
366 pages, but let's not use props because it's gonna.
Well, here, I'll just leave 'em right here.
It's gonna go
Anyway.
sideways if we start using props.
Remove them, you just have to make.
Yeah, and I don't have to remember. I guess the truth hurts. So, who ripped out the pages out of the contracts?
The department removed information that was deemed commercially confidential in the context of our third-party consultations with the recipients.
So, it was the department that ripped out the pages?
The department removed information that was deemed commercially confidential by third-party recipients.
Did the minister know that these pages were ripped out?
The minister would have been made aware of the information that is being provided by to the committee.
So the minister is on purposely ripping out pages out of the contracts to hide information from this committee?
The department is doing is meeting its obligation in terms of meeting its contractual obligations to recipients and its legal obligation vis-a-vis existing statutes to ensure that information that is commercially confidential and could cause prejudice to companies is not released.
What is the government's emissions reduction target for the $8 billion Net Zero Accelerator Fund?
Reports by both the Auditor General and Environment Canada have articulated that the program is expected to meet between 19 and 20 megatons reduction. It's our anticipation that the program will meet approximately that amount.
Time's up.
Can you explain to us how the Net Zero Accelerator helps position Canada on the international scene? Yes, certainly. In my introductory speech, I talked about three pillars. One is on short-term decreases until 2030. We're hoping that with the large emitters participating, we can have a major effect on our reductions. The second one concerns industrial transformation, and it's to help sectors carry out the transformation necessary to decrease the emission of GHGs. And our final pillar is related to clean technologies and wants to build technologies which will allow Canada and the world, not only Canada, to have the necessary technologies to reach our global objectives of reducing GHGs. I talked about Savante, which is a major company that will be capturing GHG gases. So there are a lot of there's a lot of innovation, and emissions from transportation is about 20%. So the efforts that will allow us to find technologies that will allow to decrease these emissions are critical for achieving our objectives.
I'd just like to start with a fairly straightforward question. What is the government's emission reduction target? And I'm using the word target specifically. What is the emission reduction target of the $8 billion Net Accelerator Fund?
As per sort of what was reported in the CES, in the OAG, and by Environment Canada, we expect 19 to 20 megatons.
But my question is, what is the target of the program's $8 billion in spending? What is the target of emissions reductions?
Any specific targets that would have been included in the policy approval at this point are cabinet confidence?
And to just to clarify, cabinet confidence means it must be kept secret?
Correct.
Why would the target number of emissions for $8 billion need to be kept secret?
As I said, I am bound by cabinet confidence, and so at this point, I do not have.
Could you guess why literally a number would need to be kept secret?
I wouldn't provide conjecture in that space.
Okay. Now, the Liberals gave $61 million to Pratt & Whitney, which is a subsidiary of Raytheon Technologies, a multi-billion-dollar aerospace and defense company, to develop a new type of engine. And my question is, do you think that company could develop a new engine without $61 million of taxpayer money?
I believe that the investments provided both help secure Canadian mandates, development of technology in Canada, work in Canada, and hopefully will lead to technology that will lead to decarbonization of a fairly emissions-intensive sector.
Now, in the case of that contract, how much could be non-repayable? How much could be not paid back to the government?
I think that's information that is within the realms of the contribution agreement. I would propose that that's appropriate for the second part of the discussion.
Okay. Do you see why it's frustrating for the folks I represent, all of us represent, when we're seeing taxes increase on seniors, on home heating, on just life in general, and we're seeing billions of dollars handed out to big, sometimes Canadian, European, other nations around the world based parent companies without an actual commitment of any type to reduce emissions? Do you see why that's frustrating for folks?
I have no comment on that.
Okay, well, I view it in many ways as a blank check for big companies, and I think many taxpayers do too. Now, as discussed earlier, the Environment Commissioner discovered that you did not conduct value for money audits. So continuing on in that space, since you have no credible data, you won't tell us what the target of the entirety of the program is. We have no credible data to ensure that emissions reductions actually take place, and therefore we can't measure the cost effectiveness. How can you guarantee the folks that I represent that there has not been wasted money?
So I could say that the projects were all individually reviewed in quite thorough ways for a number of factors, including job creation, including technology development, and particularly for the ones that are in phase one, their megaton reductions till 2030. The due diligence process is actually fairly rigorous, hence we were discussing the length of time it makes, and help to support the development of Canadian industry.
I mean, I would hope that it's rigorous. I think expecting anything less is simply insane. But there's also been a double counting of emissions across various other programs, as reported by the Commissioner, and a clear lack of, I think, focus. And will the department be going forward doing value for money audits on any other future programs of this nature? Or has the lesson been learned, or are we going to continue to provide vague responses back to the Environment Commissioner?
Time's up.